Welcome to the Chaos Sector. We have been notified that Get a Clue made a response video. It's good that he was mature enough to admit he was wrong. Unfortunately for Get a Clue, though, he's still in hot water. I think the reason he decided to address it is not based on being wrong. I think it's based on the year of the white Hyundai Elantra. What do we mean by that? We have found something a bit revealing in one of Get a Clue's videos. I know I said that was it. We were done. But he has made himself a person of suspicion. In examining the alleged Hyundai Elantra in the Linda Lane surveillance, Get a Clue claims the vehicle was a 2011 to 2013 model. The interesting thing about this is the specific year he claims was the model is the same year Moscow PD had gave. Now, in the audio of this video, examining the vehicle, he claims that an FBI expert identified that specific year of the Hyundai Elantra. But something seems off about this. Did the FBI examine surveillance around November 15th when Moscow PD couldn't identify the very vehicle you claim the FBI eventually identified? Okay, they call in the so-called experts to identify the vehicle. Maybe it was from another camera, an angle. Regardless of what the FBI did, well, not really. But in that scenario, Moscow PD still pretended they didn't have a make and model until December 7th. Okay. Hold on, I don't want to get too deep into it yet. Let's Get a Clue a chance to explain.
Suspect Vehicle 1 in Moscow, in the King Road neighborhood. As you can see here from the pic to this video, this 4:05:42 from the Linda Lane camera, as you can see, where I outlined the bank of windows, I have identified this as Suspect Vehicle 1. It absolutely is, at this time, in that back far northeast parking lot of the 500 Queen Road Apartments, captured right here. And it absolutely is a white Hyundai Elantra between the years 2011 and 2020. Cannot be identified any more specifically than that. However, we know that the FBI expert, and I believe this as well, initially identified this as a 2011 to 2013, and that was from other camera footage. And I submit that other camera footage is probably specifically the 1112 King Road camera. And the reason I say that is I've looked at a screenshot from camera footage from that camera, disseminated by Rathrum. Thank you, Rathrum. And from that screenshot, I can tell you I could make out the identification of the Elantra as to what model year range it is. In other words, I could differentiate 2011 to 2013 from 2014 to 2016. There are distinctive features, two distinctive features, fog light configuration and the bottom bumper reflector configuration, where you can make that determination. I am convinced 100% that is what the FBI expert used to make his identification. And that is why he identified it as a 2011 to 2013. And therefore, I am convinced that initial identification was correct. There's no way that you could see those distinguishing features and specifically identify this as a 2011 to 2013 and then all of a sudden unsee it. And all of a sudden say, no, I didn't see that. I was wrong. I somehow was wrong. Doesn't work that way, folks. So,
well, seems we have a conflict of facts. What do you expect from the FBI? In an article from NBC Philadelphia, it states that the same so-called FBI expert listed a different year range. Quote, FBI expert identified the vehicle as a 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. Kohberger was driving a 2015 white Elantra during traffic stops in August and in October, the affidavit said. Unquote. Now, this isn't the only source of the so-called FBI expert identifying a 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. Get a Clue is claiming the so-called FBI expert identified a 2011 to 2013 model. Where did he get that range from, if this was according to the affidavit? Now, I showed an article that proved the so-called FBI gave a year range from 2011 to 2016. Where is the 2011 to 2013 model actually coming from? Because if we go based on this article, the FBI tracked Kohberger's vehicle based on the year range, right? So where is that 2011 to 2013 model coming from? Oh, let's see, through the tip line. They received a tip about a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. Keep in mind, this is all rooted in a frame, so please don't fall asleep. On December 7th, Moscow PD released the identity of a make and model of the white vehicle and specific year range. A 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. That's where the stock photo of the vehicle came from, remember? Now, if the so-called FBI expert identified a 2011 to 2013 model from the neighbor's camera as Get a Clue suggests, how could this same so-called FBI expert give a 2011 to 2016 year range? There are significant differences, right? Surely they would identify the same significant differences between the 2011 to 2013 models from the 2014 to 2016 model, right? Starting off on a bad foot, buddy, I smell misdirection. Now, if you just explain the differences in, you know what, let's just examine the difference. Now, in general, a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra at night could be difficult to distinguish from a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra at night. But there are significant differences to determine which year or generation of the Hyundai Elantra. First, the 2015 model is a bit longer in length. It's subtle, but it is a difference. Second, between the model designs, specifically the headlights and front end, the 2015 model is more aggressive or sportier than its predecessors. The fog light region is cut deeper, with the accent being more defined in the 2015 model compared to the earlier models. Again, with the headlights beaming at night, you might not notice this, but the black lining of the fog light region is different than the 2011 to 2013 model. Not all 2015 models have that black lining L-shaped cut, but we're going to assume Kohberger's vehicle did have that black lining. The lights also would be brighter on the 2015 model in general compared to the earlier models. The point here is that to specifically identify a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, there had to be one of these attributes that determined that year. But this is the problem, because the so-called FBI expert identified a 2011 to 2016 model, we assume this is based on a front view of the vehicle. They would eliminate the 2017 to 2020 models, right? So this would mean they spotted the vehicle from the front view, which the 2011 to 2013 models are similar to the 2014 to 2016 models. But if Get a Clue is claiming they identified the 2011 to 2013 model, then obviously they could tell the difference, right? So why would the so-called FBI expert claim it was a 2011 to 2013 model then? They never said that. And if there is proof, Get a Clue should present it. Despite him claiming the suspect's vehicle was a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, he is also expanding that to 2020 models, which includes Kohberger's vehicle. So in either scenario, Get a Clue has Kohberger's vehicle spotted in the surveillance, meaning if it's based on the so-called FBI expert's 2011 to 2013 model, he ranges the vehicle from 2011 to 2020. If it's based on the so-called FBI expert's 2011 to 2016 model, he ranges the vehicle from 2011 to 2020. So why even mention the distinct differences in the models if you're just jumbling them all up as being all possibly spotted in the surveillance? Jumbling them all up leads to confusion. Let's continue.
I'm convinced this is a 2011 to 2013 from the 1112 King Road camera footage. Remember, it passes this 1112 King Road camera, the light bulb camera, numerous times when it was in and out of the neighborhood, both earlier, starting at like 325, and then in the neighborhood for a little bit and then back out, and then.
This is why you always watch what you say, because it can come back to haunt you. Get a Clue just claimed that the white Hyundai Elantra passed the neighbor's security camera about 3 times, starting around 3:25 a.m. Now, if it is passing the security camera, fucking passing that camera, where is it likely to end up? Oh, let me take a wild guess here. I got it. Circling Queen Road Apartments, yet approximately at 3:30 a.m. It's a Chrysler 300 circling Queen Road Apartments from 3:30 a.m. to 4:05 a.m. Then the white Hyundai Elantra was spotted. Which one is it? Once again, if the white Hyundai Elantra, which is deemed suspect number 1 by Get a Clue, is passing the neighbor's camera, coming back and forth out of the neighborhood, they would have to turn around somewhere, right? And that would be Queen Road Apartments, circling in the Linda Lane surveillance. Okay, he changed his mind. He discovered it was a Chrysler 300 that was circling Queen Road Apartments. Well, we eliminate the white Hyundai Elantra from being there at 3:25 a.m. then, and if it's not there, then we also eliminate the neighbor's camera spotting the vehicle. And if we eliminate that, then the FBI couldn't have spotted a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra based on that very neighbor's security camera. You see how everything crumbles? We told you this is what happens when you're not genuine. This is unbelievable.
Coming back in again at 404 and leaving at 420. And even at that time, remember, it comes down and does a 3-point turn, posing for the camera from every angle. So you'd be able to make this determination, folks, or I would. I can tell you right now, I would. I'm 100% confident I would.
Kind of got a bit agitated. Sounded as if Get a Clue was about to say, quote, I'm fucking 100% confident I would.
Determination, folks, or I would. I can tell you right now, I would. I'm 100% confident I would.
Why so fucking confident that it's a white Hyundai Elantra, huh? Remember, he stated he wanted to prove Kohberger was guilty. Some tried to rationalize that in saying he was just examining the surveillance in all fairness. You don't conflate guilt of murdering those housemates with examining surveillance to see if a white Hyundai Elantra was spotted. And on top of that, when exactly did this examination happen? Because if he already would have a 2011 to 2013 model based on the so-called FBI expert, why would he be trying to prove Kohberger was physically there? Oh, I guess none of this matters, because he has Kohberger there by default based on his 2011 to 2020 white Hyundai Elantra. Get a Clue claims a Chrysler 300 was circling Queen Road Apartments from 3:30 a.m. to 4:05 a.m. And the white Hyundai Elantra was in and out of the neighborhood from 3:25 a.m. up until 4:05 a.m. That vehicle would have to be circling Queen Road Apartments as well. Now, what are the chances that both vehicles are circling the apartments? Yet Get a Clue claims only the Chrysler 300 was physically circling the apartments from 3:30 a.m. to 4:05 a.m. Why? If they hadn't been there prior, what would prompt the suspect to head in that direction at 4:05 a.m. when it hadn't been in that area prior? In addition, did the Chrysler 300 just stop circling all of a sudden? Oh, it's so fitting that they didn't feel the need to circle anymore. And the next vehicle spotted was a Elantra. Yeah, we'll stick with the more logical scenario of it being one vehicle circling the entire time.
So consider that then, folks. This is a 2011 to 2013, all right? Not a 2014 to 2016. So it's not the defendant's vehicle. So it's not the defendant.
Talking from both sides of his mouth, he's going to end up with that bitter beer face soon enough. You can't claim that it's not the defendant who drove a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra when you are giving the range of the very vehicle so-called identified as a 2011 to 2020 white Hyundai Elantra. I mean, this is double talk, talking from both sides of the mouth. Get a Clue just claimed it's not Kohberger's vehicle, based on the year of the white Hyundai Elantra. Yet in the same fucking breath, claimed to range the white Hyundai Elantra from 2011 to 2020. Now you may think, oh, he's only giving that range due to the window shape, as the later models are designed a bit different. Think again. When you claim it's not the defendant, but are giving a year range that includes the defendant's vehicle, you can't rule that vehicle out in your evidential analysis. And if you're basing that off what the FBI described, then you're starting off on the wrong foot to begin with. That very FBI was tracking a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra, which by your perspective would have known the difference between a 2015 model and the 2011-2013 model. So why would the FBI track the wrong vehicle? Keep in mind, the DNA from Kohberger's parents' home was collected days before. Yes, you heard that right. Before he was arrested. Once in custody, they obtained a swab of Kohberger's DNA, then matched it to the so-called DNA found on a knife sheath at the crime scene. Now look at this fuckery. They did not have Kohberger's DNA until they obtained it from the swab in connection to the DNA at his parents' garbage. Now, we already know this was a part of the frame, but we're pointing out how the FBI clearly can't be used as a credible source of identifying a murder suspect here. Before this arrest, Kohberger was being tracked by the FBI. The same FBI identified a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. Since they were tracking Kohberger, they knew he drove a 2015 model, right? Mind you, WSU campus police spotted Kohberger's vehicle on November 29th. If Get a Clue is claiming that the FBI spotted a 2011 to 2013 model, then they identified this by significant differences between that range and Kohberger's model, right? After all, Get a Clue states the so-called FBI expert identified the vehicle by these significant differences. So how does Kohberger become the suspect to be tracked? Again, they would have this make and model and year before Kohberger was being tracked. Now, some would say, that's what Get a Clue is saying. The defendant's vehicle is not the one spotted in surveillance. So, is he saying the FBI got the wrong vehicle? So he would be contradicting the FBI, yet also agreeing with their identity of the year of the vehicle at the same time. You either are confused and don't see the fuckery of the FBI, or you're using damage control. You can't agree with them that the 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra is suspect vehicle number 1, yet they end up somehow tracking a 2015 model when they knew it was a 2011 to 2013 model. Wouldn't they give this make and model and year to all authorities? Oh, he addresses that later, but it's only going to prove the point. So, why would the FBI track the wrong vehicle? It's astonishing that this hasn't been called out in all this time. Wow. Contradictions one after another. Get a Clue is stumbling all over the place in a drunken stupor, and it's like nobody can see this shit. But we're not even done with the episode yet. There is more to this.
However, some people have submitted, and I have even said myself, maybe it's not this car at all. Maybe this vehicle is not involved at all. I mean, there are other vehicles in the neighborhood that I've isolated per this Linda Lane camera footage. I've isolated the 300 Chrysler circling the 500 Queen Road Apartments between 3:30 and 4 o'clock a.m. 3 times, same vehicle, white Chrysler 300.
And the reason he had to backtrack is because none of what he previously stated would make a lick of fucking sense. You can't have the white Hyundai Elantra creeping around in that neighborhood, passing the security camera, which would have them passing down Queen Road. That's the only way it's passing the camera, because it's facing King Road, which is a dead end. The vehicle didn't drive in that direction, towards the dead end, if it's targeting the victim's home. King Road is not only a dead end, but the alleged suspect wouldn't be able to view the home on that street, as the neighbors' homes block that view. Since the alleged suspect is planning on attacking during that time frame, they have to physically see the home to know what's going on. So, of course, circling Queen Road apartments give them a direct view of the home and everything else for that matter. It would drive closer to the target's home, since they know the location, of course, and they would know they could circle the Queen Road apartments to watch the home and the activity. So this would be 3:25 a.m. and extending out to 4:05 a.m., then ultimately ending around 4:20 a.m., which you claim is the white Hyundai Elantra spotted in the Linda Lane surveillance. But within this same time frame, here comes a new challenger. We have the Chrysler 300 being physically there during this time frame, taking over. You're backtracking because both can't be there at the same time, because they would literally be there at the same fucking time. This shit is...
So I was thinking, well, why couldn't it be that car? Or why couldn't it be the Ford Fusion that, was pretty much right behind Suspect Vehicle 1? But this is why I believe Suspect Vehicle 1, the 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, is complicit in this crime. This is why I think it. Because...
Nope. You can't have a range of 2011 to 2020 being the model of the vehicle, yet say the 2011 to 2013 was involved in the murders. Amongst the physical contradiction of even that vehicle being there with the Chrysler 300, you see this madness? They both can't be there at the same time. You would have seen the white Hyundai Elantra prior to 4:05 a.m., because where would it be if it's coming back and forth out of the neighborhood? Remember, they claim the vehicle exited on Walenta Drive several times. For it to come back and forth, it would have to make a circle around Queen Road Apartments, then head out to Walenta Drive and repeat that process a few times, which never happened anyway. That was perhaps the unmarked cruiser snooping around, entering and leaving the area, not getting too close, not going too far. Then after everything was done, they come back for the last time around 4:07 a.m., and it was completely quiet in that Linda Lane surveillance. The silence of a neighborhood who just witnessed one vehicle driving around after the culprits had left the crime scene. We pointed this out during the time frame the alleged Kohberger was spotted, which was 4:05 a.m. It was completely silent. But before this time frame, there was dogs barking, a female screaming OMG, a guy say no, 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 what sounded like someone being slammed against a vehicle. A female says, quote, poor guy, and Ethan's name was heard. This was all during the 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. time frame. The murders occurred within the 3 a.m. time frame in general, with previous altercations leading up to the murders. There was not a peep in that neighborhood in the 4 a.m. hour because everyone went inside, locked their doors, and vowed to never say anything about what happened. And the only vehicle snooping around, yes, the same vehicle Get a Clue claimed to have spotted, was the Ford Fusion at 4:07 a.m. Yet this vehicle was there the entire time frame, circling around. Now let's listen more. Before we prove the alleged white Hyundai Elantra had been edited into the surveillance to push the narrative that it was Kohberger's vehicle. This is why Get a Clue ducked from identifying the Ford Fusion as the unmarked cruiser. Oh yes.
The Moscow Police Department and Brett Payne, around Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit before, we don't know the exact timing, but we do know that the bolo was put out on November 25th to all the local regional law enforcement. And that bolo, get this folks, after the FBI agent identifying it as a 2011 to 2013 and Payne is in possession of that identification, the bolo does not indicate 2011 to 2013. And instead, it indicates just a white Hyundai Elantra. Now, why would you do that? Why would you not say 2011 to 13? Why would you waste regional law enforcement's time casting such a wide net for so many Elantras when you have an FBI expert's identification specifically as a 2011 to 2013, which is going to be a much smaller number, and you're going to stand a much better chance of honing in on the owner of this vehicle much quicker. And instead, it's just white Hyundai Elantra. That's a huge question, and Anne needs to ask this and get to the bottom of it.
Now here's the scenario that Get a Clue is basically alluding to. Payne purposely omitted the year of the white Hyundai Elantra to avoid tracking down that specific white Hyundai Elantra the so-called FBI expert spotted. Can you please elaborate on that? Because you're basically saying Moscow PD covered the murders up more than the FBI, and we all know it's the other way around. Come on. In addition, it doesn't matter what Brett Payne left out. The FBI basically was in control of that investigation, so they would inform all state and local authorities about the 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. They already did that. Remember? That's what you're examining in your video, a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, as suspect vehicle number 1. The only reason Payne would omit the year of the vehicle is because someone in Moscow drove that vehicle and was suspect vehicle number 1. And then you have to factor in the time frame, because November 15th was when Moscow PD described the vehicle in the Linda Lane surveillance as a, quote, light-colored car. And we know they also obtained the neighbor's camera footage, so they apparently couldn't identify that vehicle neither, right? Although it would not be obstructed by anything coming down Queen Road. But it still doesn't matter, because it was still reported that Moscow PD was searching for a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. So what are you really proving here? In their press release, they are specifically looking for a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, the very year that you claim the so-called FBI expert identified. So did they go back and correct it? Because you claim Moscow PD gave only the make, model, and color, without the year sometime prior, during the Thanksgiving holiday. Can you provide any documentation that showed they omitted the year of the white Hyundai Elantra? On November 15th, Moscow PD still didn't have a make and model of the vehicle, at least publicly reporting anyway. Based on what we've seen, they never had a press release that identified a white Hyundai Elantra, let alone a year, until December 7th. So, where is this bolo of Payne omitting the year of the white Hyundai Elantra? So here's the problem with his so-called evidential analysis. He is agreeing with a so-called FBI expert in spotting a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra from the neighbor's camera, yet he is also ranging the vehicle within the range of Kohberger's vehicle. The FBI identified a 2011 to 2013 model and somehow end up tracking a 2015 model. Get a Clue claims that the white Hyundai Elantra was in the neighborhood, passing the neighbor's camera around 3:25 a.m., yet also claims a Chrysler 300 had circled Queen Road Apartments from 3:30 a.m. to 4:05 a.m. Where is the white Hyundai Elantra in surveillance during this time frame? It has to be heading in that direction, right? It would drive down Queen Road, watching the home as it passes by, circle around Queen Road Apartments, getting even closer to the home, then leaving the neighborhood, right? Come back and repeat the process until its final pass at 4:05 a.m. It would have been spotted by 2 cameras in the neighborhood, the neighbor's camera and the Linda Lane camera, right? Oh, but wait a minute. It would be the Chrysler 300 that's circling the apartments, not the suspect who's watching the home. How does the so-called FBI expert change the year of the model to be tracked? Oh, is it because the 2011 to 2013 model had been discontinued, so they decided to track a totally different year despite identifying an earlier model as the suspect? What the hell? I know. Get a Clue tries to allude to the alleged white Hyundai Elantra spotted in surveillance, somehow disappearing off the face of the earth. So the suspect's vehicle just vanished into thin air. They couldn't track it once it left the neighborhood? But they spotted the vehicle in multiple areas by multiple cameras, right?
I submit that this 2011-2013 no longer exists, or it's a burnt-out husk of a vehicle right now. I submit that I believe this vehicle at this point has been destroyed. And so now it's a matter of finding who owned that vehicle before it went mysteriously missing.
What we have here is someone who is saying one thing 1 minute and saying something totally different the next. He states that the suspect's vehicle is the 2011 to 2013 model, agreeing with the same government agency who clearly was heading the frame against Kohberger, and somehow tries to convince his audience that he believes Kohberger is innocent. Now, if he believes Kohberger is innocent, and that's not his vehicle in surveillance, how does his vehicle become the target? The same FBI buddy. But have you ever called the FBI out for tracking the wrong vehicle? Oh, I'm sure there's a video somewhere on his channel. Here's the thing. He's alluding to it being Kohberger's vehicle, and believing Kohberger's vehicle wasn't there at the same time. Yeah, that's the double talking. Get a clue for you. And then we have the Ford Fusion. Boy, if he shuffled his feet from our inquiry about the Ford Fusion, then we know his entire so-called evidential analysis is rooted in misdirection, vague analysis, and to be honest, damage control. You can't have both the white Hyundai Elantra and the Chrysler 300 there at the same time. One of them is the vehicle circling road apartments. And guess what? It's neither. It's the Ford Fusion. Someone went in and edited the vehicle to make it appear to be different make and models. Oh, that sounds wacky. A wild speculation, you say? Well, many claimed the very Linda Lane audio was fake, assuming it wasn't a part of the surveillance, so clearly the possibility exists. What about the neighbor's camera audio? The actual mainstream media came out and debunked it, and even an individual was accused of faking that audio. But that Linda Lane surveillance was not released by Moscow PD. The landlord apparently passed that on to someone they trusted, and it was leaked onto social media sometime later. The fact that it wasn't officially released by Moscow PD, although that doesn't say much, but you get the point. If it wasn't officially released and some third-party source leaked it, you would never know the purpose for that leak. Now, we pointed out in the previous series it was to so-called physically show Kohberger's vehicle that night. That was the plan. But the time frame of when Moscow PD had obtained that surveillance, which was on November 15th, 2 days after the murders, up until the day that leak occurred, there was enough time to edit that footage. We're not into the TikTok trend, but here's an audio excerpt from addressing that surveillance.
Breaking news in the Idaho 4 case regarding the apparent sold footage from the Linda Lane apartment complex. I have received direct confirmation that this video has been altered for sensationalization and personal gain. I spoke directly with the apartment complex manager, and here's what he had to say. Hi, Alyssa. I'm happy to dispel some rumors, but it is frustrating that so many people are speculating and making stuff up instead of allowing law enforcement and the courts to do their jobs. We were essentially scammed out of this footage by, and I've redacted the person's name, she appears to have modified the video in order to sensationalize it. The actual footage was provided to law enforcement on 11/14/22. The 1330 parking lot footage is a block away with an entire apartment complex between it and King Street with no view of any streets. There is nothing of note on this footage that hasn't already been thoroughly scrutinized and analyzed by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. The sickening audio and video edit that this person claimed came from the original is faked and has put the apartment complex manager and the case in harm's way. Please fact-check with credible sources and be careful about the information that you spread. I will be on the grounds in Moscow on Sunday, July 16th at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Tune into the live and more updates.
Now, what was released to social media was edited. She claims that the landlord stated the scammer, quote, modified the video. Before we go any further, there's a bit of damage control going on here. The landlord would not be scammed out of that surveillance footage if they are claiming law enforcement and the FBI had analyzed it. The landlord would contact law enforcement and the FBI about this person who is attempting to obtain a copy of that surveillance, which is classified as evidence. If it were a so-called private investigator or someone speaking on behalf of the FBI or law enforcement as some sort of forensics video analyst, the landlord would contact them about this person before just handing their surveillance, yes, their surveillance, over to some random person. That surveillance is vital evidence that could determine if the alleged suspect's vehicle was physically there that night. And not only that, the victim's home is basically right around the corner. So they are not handing over that surveillance to someone who, quote, scammed them out of it. To scam someone, you would have to manipulate them about your credentials, like your profession, in being some sort of investigator working on that case. That would prompt the landlord to seek assistance from the FBI or local law enforcement. You see? Let me tell you what happened. FBI and Moscow PD knew what happened, of course. The vehicle that was circling the apartments was one of their own. The scammer, or better yet, the modifier, went in and edited the vehicle to make it appear to be a white Hyundai Elantra. Mind you, this was leaked after, that's right, after Kohberger had already been arrested and charged. Now, isn't that a coincidence? Oh, but let's dig deeper into it. It was released to show the fake white Hyundai Elantra to confirm Kohberger was there. Everything else was supposed to be an afterthought as the light bulb was spotted. It was supposed to be until everyone started examining the audio. And of course, more damage control occurred, claiming the audio was fake. The reason this TikToker, see, it's always those TikTokers, right? The reason this TikToker came out and tried to execute a damage control regarding the audio is because, as we pointed out, all of that activity occurred before the alleged Kohberger arrived. So that in itself would help exonerate Kohberger because there is violence occurring before he was in the neighborhood, and that violence included one of the victims' names being heard in Ethan. Oh yeah, the audio is fake. Don't believe it. While everyone was debating whether the audio in the surveillance was real or not, the edit of the vehicle was not focused on, because it was suggested that it was Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra. Some who believed Kohberger may be innocent or even framed had to come to the possible realization that that was his vehicle, which at the least makes him a suspect. But if you zoom in on that segment of footage, when the vehicle creeps forward, there is an edit. We'll break it down, of course. Get a clue? Are you still there? We're plugging you into all of this, buddy. The reason Get a Clue shuffles his feet from our inquiry is because he's protecting Moscow PD. He didn't make any videos about this case until almost a year later. The growing consensus was that Kohberger had been framed by that point, and out of nowhere, Get a Clue comes in. Yet he has been here since the beginning, and even before the beginning. Lurking, watching, snooping around. We know that Linda Lane surveillance was leaked around 7 to 8 months ago from this date of 2024. If we do a bit of math here, we get what? Approximately June or July of 2023. Get a Clue's first video listed was uploaded in June of 2023. Many may say you can't put that on him, that's slander. But if you join November 8th of 2022, 5 days before the murders, then when the murders occur on the 13th, your first video regarding the case is almost a year later in June of 2023. Were you researching before you decided to investigate? Were you just sitting back and following the case? Not likely, since your content is focusing on key issues that everyone else has broken down. So that so-called sitting back and watching would have motivated you to start sharing your thoughts at least within that January to February timeframe of 2023. That was the main timeframe of the case. So his first video aligns with the same timeframe that Linda Lane surveillance was leaked. It alludes to Kohberger's vehicle being spotted, and Get a Clue also alludes to Kohberger's vehicle being spotted. He even stated, quote, "I wanted to prove Kohberger was guilty," unquote. All of the reverse psychology, pretending to seek the truth, providing so-called evidential analysis, is all to cover for his involvement in editing that Linda Lane surveillance. Yet, didn't start covering the case until June of 2023. That was a red flag, because what were you focusing on, or better yet, what were you doing during the time frame of November 13th, all the way up until June 2023? Okay, it's none of our business, right? We can accept that. But it becomes a concern based on everything that has been revealed thus far. I have a suspicion that Get a Clue was sent to do damage control, because he hadn't made any content about the murders until June of 2023. By that time, heck, a lot of people believe Kohberger had been framed. And here comes Get a Clue, so-called investigating the Idaho murders. But it's his words that got him in trouble. His response to our post opened up the can of maggots. He should have just left it alone. It wasn't something to make a video about. But he wanted to discredit the chaos and present himself as more genuine, making the chaos look like we have no credibility in our investigative work, presenting, quote, wild speculations with no facts to back anything up. Yeah, that is discrediting the chaos flat out. No subtle shots, nothing subliminal there. Straightforward with his shots. See, what our post did was not only question his claim, but it made him realize that his claim was highly unlikely. That's what triggered him. And it led to his rant, which only made us look into him a bit, which led to everything thus far. The lesson here, don't come for the chaos. Now, let's look at that so-called Hyundai Elantra in the Linda Lane surveillance.
Hold on, that's enough for now. We need to cool the meter down. We can examine that footage in the next episode. We'll have more time. Let's just, let this episode go.
You're right. Thanks for the heads up. Kinda got lost in the chaos. I wasn't even paying attention. This is the chaos sector.